On now. In other news, Iraqi government forces have taken control of the main bridge in Mosul and advanced towards the mosque where Islamic State's leader reclaimed the terrorist caliphate in 2014. However, the military is facing stronger resistance from ISIL as soldiers push towards the city centre. The heavy fighting in densely populated areas has forced almost 100,000 people to flee in the last 19 days.
There are thousands of people who are fleeing the city because of the very, very heavy fighting, because of the conditions inside the city.
People are dehydrated, traumatized. They tell us that they not only fled the fighting, but they also fled the lack of food.
Heavy fighting in Mosul is raging, as you can see from these pictures behind me. The civilians are suffering as they're hit by both ISIL and the US-led coalition targeting the terrorists. Artis Murad Gazdiev went to a hospital where people caught in the crossfire are being treated.
To liberate Mosul, you must first destroy it. That's what it seems like in practice. Day by day, thousands of tons of explosives are demolishing the city and decimating the population, all in the name of freeing them from ISIS. What is happening in Mosul is extraordinary. It is safe to say that the scale of the humanitarian catastrophe we're seeing here has well and truly surpassed what we saw in Aleppo. It was entirely unexpected. Aid organizations and charities are rushing here to help deal with this tide of injured civilians and refugees, people running from Mosul, the operation there to liberate the city from ISIS. Iraq could never hope to deal with this level of civilian casualties all by itself, and here's where the Good Samaritans step in.
We started to think about this intervention when we have seen the big amount of injured people, especially civilian, because today the hospital is full of civilians.
As many as 120 wounded are brought to Erbil every day, and that's just the survivors. In all, there are hundreds of casualties daily.
صار معنا طلعنا من بيوتنا وركبونا بالهمرات عبرنا الجيش قعدنا وجانا الهوا انضربنا.
This young girl's legs were sprayed by shrapnel, but she got off lightly compared to her mother.
أدحق على شناين مالنا بس الدم يصب من عندهم. هسا مختارين بمستشفى الأخ. أخوتي همين 3 هم مختارين. هاي حالنا طلعنا حتى ننقذ نفسنا وشو انقصفنا انضربنا.
On that day, she lost an eye, a hand, and the ability to walk. But that's nothing, she says, compared to her grief.
يجوز أني سويت شيء مو زين والله نقذني ما أعرف سويت زين ما أعرف.
The shells that took so much from her were launched by ISIS, she says. But it isn't just jihadists civilians have got to be afraid of.
إيه طبعا إذا بين البيوت طبعا يا أخويا. هم بين البيوت والعالم تتأذى.
إحنا 5 عوائل. كل ما داعش صعد فوق بيت نعوف في البيت نمشي نتجمع، تجمعنا ببيت واحد. طلعوا فوق هذا البيت 4 قناصين. قلنا لهم اتركونا نعوف في البيت لكم بس خلينا نجي بحياتنا.
That is the price of liberation. City warfare is hell for all involved.
لأن الطيارة راح تضربكم. لما أرض معركة منطقة مدنية. فما قبلوا قاموا يضربونا بالطلقات. قالوا ما حد يطلع كل من يموت بيوم.
ISIS has made sure that to get to them, you have to go through civilians first, and their tactic is proving horrendously effective.
الساعة المستشفى كلها واحد تقول له انت شلون تقول انا استخدم الدرع بشري يصعد فوق بيتي.
And that's the terrible truth. To liberate Mosul, the Iraqi army and the US-led coalition must kill all too many of its inhabitants. Morad Gazdiev, RT, from Erbil, Iraq.
The current situation in Mosul is like the one we saw in the Syrian city of Aleppo a few months ago. Both cities have suffered heavy destruction amid large-scale anti-terror operations. RT's Caleb Morpin took to the streets of New York to see how much people actually know about what's going on.
Two different anti-terror operations. One in Iraq's Mosul, currently led by the United States. One in Syria's Aleppo, led by Russia and Assad's forces. Do people see them both as equally justifiable? We decided to put the question to people. So when you hear about Aleppo, what comes to mind?
Not a safe place to be. Human atrocities.
Suffering of people there.
Some pretty terrible things going on over there right now.
We actually have a video here from Mosul. And these are people describing what's happening there.
More than 100 houses have been hit by airstrikes in the area recently.
There were ISIL fighters here, behind the house. They tried to flee. Then the house was bombed from the air. My brother is still under the ruins. There are shell casings there. There are still about 25 people buried in the rubble. We couldn't get them out.
It's a pretty bloody conflict, and I mean, I don't know that I can believe anything that I'm hearing on the news.
They're biased, you know, so I'm not really surprised.
You expect bias from the media?
Oh yeah, they like to attack the Russians all the time. And that's the big boogeyman right now, the Russians.
Didn't know anything was going on there. Had no idea.
Yeah.
You think it's the media's fault?
Yes, the mainstream press has done a pretty good job telling people who it is that they should consider to be the good guys and the bad guys. But apparently they haven't done such a good job reporting on the actual facts. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
Various analysts told us about the differing coverage of the two cities.
In Mosul, we don't seem to have, we don't have the Bana Alabats, we don't have the activists on the ground, we don't have the white helmets amplifying the propaganda as it did in Aleppo. We don't have any of that in Mosul, and we can only draw the conclusion that that is because this is a US coalition operation. But somehow the civilians that are killed under US coalition bombardment are effectively collateral damage, whereas the loss of civilian life during the liberation of East Aleppo from terrorist occupation is a war crime.
What happens is the media, unfortunately, tends to replicate the kind of interests and the point of view of the military in the West, and I guess that's what's happening here. It is a scandal. It is double standards. It's hypocritical.
The people of Aleppo are starving.
Blockaded and besieged in freezing temperatures.
Millions more displaced.
A humanitarian catastrophe unfolds.
Iraqi troops backed by the U.S. military are tightening the noose around ISIS in the city of Mosul.
To remove so-called Islamic State from Iraq's second largest city.
They hope to get Mosul back, perhaps within weeks.
An estimated 4,000 people are fleeing Mosul every day.
Hunger forced us to run.
And the airstrikes hitting civilians.
The jets would bomb us.
A house just 20 meters from us was destroyed.
3 houses destroyed in an airstrike. There were so many casualties.
That's somewhat inevitable.
A reminder now of our breaking news from France. The French government